Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Get Off My Lawn Live. I am your host, Eric Buckner. Eric B is in the. I would like to first start out by saying today is a cold and rainy day, but we're going to make the best of it. We got a few things to talk about this evening. Today is why some people don't vote at all. Unfortunately, I was unable to get anyone to take me up on my offer to come join on the show live so we could discuss. But hopefully, if you guys are listening and are in the comments and you feel this way about some of these things, by all means, join and let us know what you think. And let's have a discussion about it. Let's deal with it that way. But right now, folks, we're going to get into what we normally do here at the beginning of the show. We're going to get into some of our hot topics here and talk about what's going on here in the world in the last few days or so. Excuse me. I'm always having technical difficulties. I'm working them out, though. Slowly but surely, I'm working them out. But okay, let's talk about what's going on lately here. Not a lot different, unfortunately. This being the last week before Election Day. Of course, they report the usual news, but for the most part, most things kind of revolve around the election. But before we get into that, let's talk about a couple of things that's come up. For one, unfortunately, people, we have another police incident involving a minority being killed by police. This one happened yesterday in Philadelphia. A young man by the name of Walter Wallace Jr., age 27, was gunned down in a police incident. Basically, it was involving some type of domestic dispute. Police were dispatched to contend with the situation. They were informed by the people involved that this young man had some type of mental issue, and they in turn had multiple people on the scene. The young man at one point came at police officers with a knife, and they in turn shot at him 7 times each, the two officers in question, and killed him. Now, of course, it's still an ongoing investigation, but those are the basic facts. And of course, as it has been more times than not in 2020, they have the incident on video for us to see. You can go to your YouTube or basic news outlet, it's on there. Very graphic. Some of them probably blog the part where he gets shot, some of them probably don't. Of course, at this point, we are beyond tired of these incidents happening. And it seems like they happen at least once every 2 or 3 weeks now. It's really crazy that even with what happened with George Floyd, we're still having these confrontations in this violent way again and again. So of course, this happened Monday, and Philadelphia wasn't having it. They nutted up last night. There were there was a riot and some looting involved. Of course, I cannot sit here and condone the looting and things, of course, because you're hurting your own community to a degree when you do that. But in the same token, I understand the frustration and the anger that comes from that because we're tired of seeing this happen again and again, particularly to our people of color. It's like nothing is being done about it. It's like no one of importance cares enough to deal with it properly. It's really, really disturbing. And we'll have to see how that one plays out. But again, tired of having these incidents, tired of talking about them, tired of them still being an issue even months later after that one. I mean, it's been going on for years and years, as we know, but we got to stop dealing with this. They got to find a better way to de escalate these situations than how they're doing. So that happened Monday. Couple quick things of note that happened in the news. Today, the Supreme Court struck down a ruling in Wisconsin that would have allowed mail-in ballots to be turned in later than actual election day, basically citing that they had plenty of time to turn them in between now and then. So why do they need extra time? But as we know, there is an issue with some of the mail systems here in America for whatever reason. So they want to allow them that extra time so their votes could count too. But of course, it's being revealed that the main people that dissented against this and were against it were some of the same people nominated by President Trump in the Supreme Court. and now basically they're paying back him by citing things in his favor. That's at least how it's being viewed by some folks. So when people say it does not matter who your Supreme Court justices are because they're supposed to be non-biased, are they? I think we'll find out even more so now that, of course, Amy Baird has been nominated and put on the court. She is now a Supreme Court justice as of this moment. So we'll see how that plays out in regards to some of these things that she's going to rule on in the next 30 days. We'll have that discussion at another point, I'm sure. Another thing of interest that came up in the news today, that there is a large, distinctly large amount of illegal drugs being seized at the borders. And I say borders, I mean not just the Mexican border, but the Canadian border, perhaps even more at the Canadian border. And it's basically a 1,700% increase in the number of drugs that have seized at the border this year. Now, the thing is, as far as Canada goes, the border's pretty much been closed to us for the most part for the majority of the pandemic. So the only people that should be going back and forth from here to there are essential people. Only goods should be essential goods, but yet they're seizing these trucks. Like last week, I believe they seized a truck here in Michigan and found that this garbage truck that we basically assumed was garbage in it. For whatever reason, they checked the truck and found that there was over 1,000 pounds of marijuana. 1,000 pounds of marijuana in this truck, basically in garbage bags. But you open the garbage bags and hear these big ass boxes full of marijuana. So, yeah, granted, marijuana is legal here in Michigan. However, in the same token, it has to go through certain channels, and a garbage truck clearly is not one of them. So, they're seizing all type of things, and it's not just drugs. They're seizing illegal weapons. They're seizing illegal electronics from the border, and they're saying most of the stuff is not us sending stuff to Canada, but in fact, stuff coming from Canada here to us. So that is of interest. I find that to be very interesting. Another thing that happened here in Michigan today was there was a ruling that overturned the previous injunction banning open carry near election polling places on election day. Basically, the judge saw it as a political thing, and why did it come up at this moment? But we know that it came up like that primarily because of what has happened in light of the last few months, particularly with the incident at the state capitol where the open carry people came in to disrupt a live session of state Congress, and also because, of course, of the plot against the governor that was revealed a few weeks ago. So now, of course, since that's been blocked, the Attorney General is going to try to get all that reinstated before Election Day. But the concern is that people will go to vote on Election Day, and there will be people with open carry using those guns to intimidate people not to go to the polls, to convince them to say this is not a good day to vote. Now, granted, here in Michigan, a great majority of people have decided to vote either early or through mail-in ballots. So a lot of those votes should probably already be in as we speak. But it's still, same token, when you look at this state and how few votes it took for President, his name, to win this particular state last time around, less than 10,000 votes, it may just take a few people here and there to get intimidated or determined not to vote. That leads him to win the state again. Because again, the concern is not so much how many votes he gets, because again, they're already looking at early polling results and see that he appears to be losing in terms of that. But they're looking at it in terms of, okay, the Electoral College is how he won last time. He very well again could win it this way this time, if enough people on either side from state to state don't vote, and that in turn gives him the Electoral College points necessary to win that state. So we have all those things going on. Like I said, next week, of course, is election day. I will not be on next Tuesday for that reason and one other I will discuss later. But yeah, we got to get out and vote. That's my personal opinion. But of course, some people see it differently. And those are the people we want to talk about now. Because here's the thing, folks. We need to understand why some people choose not to vote. Now, like I said, if you're watching here live and you can get in on the comments, you can watch here either through uh, my page, my personal page, my Get Off My Lawn Live page, or through YouTube. It is on YouTube Live right now at this moment. So if you want to comment as we have this discussion, feel free to join in the comments and I will discuss them or just keep discussing what I have learned from other folks. Now, like I said, the thing is, I wanted to have somebody specifically to talk to about it because I want to gain an understanding. See, we always want to get on these people about not voting and just tell them you need to vote. Our ancestors fought for the right to vote. We are Americans. That's part of our American civic duty to vote, etc., etc. We give them these reasons to vote, and for some of them, after a while, it wears them down. It makes sense. But for some people, they're not having it. They're not trying to hear it. They're not trying to understand it. And those are the people that I want to gain some understanding from. I'm not saying that whatever they're going to say is going to change my mind, obviously, but we need to understand why they feel this way. Because keep in mind, in 2016, 40% of eligible voters did not vote at all. At all. Now, we know some of them was because they just did not like the choices at the top of the tickets, plain and simple. So they chose to sit this one out and kind of ride with whoever we decided. Though I would safely say out of those people that did it for that reason, they did not think the present person in charge would end up winning. We were told because we saw the uphold and believe what we wanted to believe that was the case, and basically he came in through the side door. And as a result, now 4 years later, here's where we are. Now you may argue you're better off now than you were 4 years ago. That's neither here nor there. That's not this part of the conversation. We need to understand why a vast amount of Americans choose not to vote. Because even though we know those numbers will definitely be higher this time around, there's already 65 million people who have voted either early or through the mail, according to the latest numbers. So based upon that, we're looking at least 140 to 150 million people that'll probably vote between now and the end of the night on next Tuesday, which is a good thing. But there'll still probably be a good 20 to 25% of eligible voters that just sit this one out for whatever reason. Now, let's kind of explore some of that. Well, one, obviously, if you're not enamored with the choices on the top of the ticket, my advice is that that's not the only thing that's on your ballot, people. There's other things that you need to vote for. There's your Congress people, there's your judges, there's your local ordinances, there's your state ordinances. All those things will be on your ballot. And those things have some interest to you in some way, shape, or form. There are those people who basically look at it as, okay, I'm just so-and-so. My vote does not matter. I'm just one person. What does one person's vote mean to anything in the long and short of it? That one vote might be the difference between whether something happens and something doesn't, or those few votes. Remember, I look at it this way. When you're voting, it's just like when you are looking into an organization, like today, for instance. I got a thing on my email to vote my proxy for Microsoft. I have a couple mini shares. I know I've had that discussion a couple weeks ago about the mini shares thing. I had a couple mini shares in Microsoft. So that gave me a proxy to vote in regards to what to do in terms of the share or the shareholders. So I was given a quick little voting thing, okay, yay or nay or abstain or what have you. Your vote is the same way. Basically, if you go to the polls and you see something on there, like for example, a few years ago, we voted on the marijuana thing, and they say, do you want marijuana to be legal or do you not? And at that point, you make your decision. Now, if you voted one way and it went another way, there's two ways to look at it. One, okay, you were in the minority. Most people did not feel the way you felt about it. So you have to now go with what the people who voted more than you went with. Or you can look at it as, okay, I voted. This is what I wanted. Now I get what I wanted installed and put in place. And hopefully that makes things better for my overall bottom line. Because yes, we are taught nowadays as people to be out for self to a great degree, which concerns me, as you know. But in the same token, we are also a group. This is America. We are the United States of America. So we vote on what we feel these United States should be doing or should be governed as with our vote. We say that, okay, person, we have voted for you. We prefer your way of how the country will be ran as opposed to someone else's way. And we want you to implement that way over the way that we see now. So that's one way to look at it. The other thing is, okay, my vote also represents the people who are in charge of what's going on. And I want them to represent us in such a way. So I'm voting on behalf of us that we should do this, or this person should be charged of this, or this person should be set up in this way. So that's why I vote. But some people may not look at it like that. And that's the thing. We're trying to understand here in this discussion why some people look at it differently. Why some people just take their vote and it's just, it's nothing. It means nothing. Why bother? Yes, I've talked to people over the course of time. I've been fortunate enough to have a job where I can have these discussions with people from time to time. And yes, some of them are younger people. Now, I have been accused of being an ageist. I will call it that. Basically, that's saying that because I'm now a person of a particular age, I'm starting to get on the younger people about what they do and not see it as just thing that happens over and over again. The bottom line is the world is a different place, and the people who are under me in terms of age, they may look at it differently than me. Some of them really do. So I'm trying to gain understand. I don't want to be that older person that has become so set in their mindset that they're not even going to consider how someone younger than myself may view things. We should never get to that point. Another thing that we need to consider is that we're not looking at things through the eyes of the people who are not voting. So we need to gain some perspective as to what are they seeing that's saying, okay, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Buckner, about the voting and whatnot, but I still don't feel it necessary because of this, this, and this. This, and this, I'm not sure what that is. Some people just feel like government is so screwed up and so out of whack that it doesn't matter who's in charge, things won't get any better anyway, period. So why vote? It doesn't matter. But see, the whole point is this. If we know that our democracy is in a bad place and we need to switch things around, how do we begin to start that process? The only means at this point to do that is with our vote. If we vote people who have our same thought processes and consciousness, then perhaps we can start to make the changes necessary to make things happen. One of the things that's quote unquote on the ballot is how we deal with systemic racism here in America. Because as we know, we're in a bad place with it. We're in a real bad place with it. We would not have had the over 100 plus days of protests that we've had during this year in the midst of a pandemic if things weren't so bad in terms of the racial divide. Not to mention to have a leader who seems to stoke the flames of that every day with his conversational rhetoric and the things that he says in regards to race or doesn't say in some cases. Okay, We got my cousin. She's jumped on here. Let's see what she has to say about some of these things. They don't feel like anyone has done anything for them. Yes. I don't know how many times I've heard that, not only just in the last 4 years, but in general, how the government don't do nothing for me. I take care of myself. I go to work. I do this. I do that. But people, you got to remember, okay, when you go to work, more times than not, unless you're doing some hokey pokey stuff, you paying taxes, right? Who determines what those taxes are? Who determines where your taxes go to and what they're used for? Government. Who votes for government? Us. So if they're not using your money the way that you would like for them to, don't you think that warrants a change? Right now, personally, I'm pissed. I'm pissed at our government, particularly the Senate, because they keep playing these political games with one another instead of dealing with what we really need done right now, which is help during the pandemic. There are several of us out here who are not full time working, who are behind on our bills because of the pandemic, who can't go and do what we need to get done, who are at home with our kids, so we're not able to work the way we need to, and all these other things that require us to use the money that we've put into the government at this point to help us get through this until we get to a point where we have vaccines or have a much better handle on the amount of people that's getting sick every day. There's over 70,000 reported cases of COVID just today. In the last 30 days, there's been over 1 million reported cases here in the United States alone. That's not even talking about other countries. In Italy right now, they basically fighting in the streets because they've decided they need to start locking some stuff back down, and they're not happy. Don't you think that's probably going to happen here as well at the rate we going? Particularly if we leave the person in charge now that's in charge, that's going to be an issue. But again, your vote helps to resolve at least a small part of that at this point. I think some people get frustrated and choose not to vote because they feel like, okay, once they voted that one time, that's supposed to fix everything. This is a kind of an instant gratification society at this point where we expect things to happen overnight. I mean, because of modern technology where you can just basically go on your phone and bop, bop, boom, and look up and do some of everything, you kind of expect the world to work that way, but the world doesn't work that way. Politics and government doesn't work that way. You don't just fix things overnight. They don't just go in there and be like on Monday, let's do this, and by Wednesday it's done, and then by Friday it's implemented. That's not how government. That's not how America is set up. That's not how any part of the world is set up, to be quite honest. So we have to understand that, but we also have to understand that in order to create the change that we need, we have to start at a beginning. And that beginning has to start somewhere. Now, where that somewhere is right now is at the voting booth. Because at that point, we begin to make the process work. Now, granted, some people, they just seem to have more influence because they have more cashola. They can go to the government officials in charge personally or have their lobbyists or what have you talk to them directly and say, this is what I want done. This is what I'm willing to do, make happen. And yeah, politics is a dirty game. We know some people, they're not just talking. They go into that person, they saying, you're going to make this happen. Here you go. And stuff happens that way. That's the unfortunate truth of the matter. But we have to, at that point, hope that the people that we put in charge of us, the people that we put to represent us as a people, because remember, our elected officials are our representatives. They're basically taking your proxy and saying, this is what my community wants done in terms of this, this, and this. Now, if they're doing their job properly, then that should work for you one way or another. If they're not doing their job properly and they're basically going to the White House or to the state center or whatnot for their own personal benefits, that's a whole nother story. So again, I understand why some people are saying, I'm sitting this one out again because I don't trust nobody that's involved. You are part of the blame to that because the way our process is set up, it's not just, okay, here's candidate A, here's candidate B, boom, let's have at it. No, there are different primaries and things happen. Okay, we have this grouping of 8 to 10 people. Let's work with them. Let's see what they're talking about. Then we'll narrow it down to 4 or 2, and then we'll narrow it down to the one, and he'll go against the other one. And that's how we do it. Now, like I said, the party system, the way it's set up now, is really not good. We know that. We know it's kind of a jacked up way of looking at things. But in the same token, if there's solutions to be had in terms of how we deal with it from this point forward, these are the people that we need to talk to, the people that don't vote. We need to find out from their perspective, okay, since you choose not to vote at all, why is that? What can we do to get you to be part of the process? What can we do to gain you an understanding of why this is important? What can you do to tell us why you feel it's not important? What can we do to change it or fix it over time? Because like I said, it's not an overnight thing. None of this stuff is overnight. So we need to figure out what we need to do in order to make things be a way that involves the majority of the people, regardless of what party this is or what party that is. Because yes, I personally would like to see us step away from the two-party system at one point. I really want it to be a point to where people go into government and they have an open mind about everything that needs to be done. And then after they hear whatever proposal there is, if they're not sure, they go back to the constituents, whether they be Democrat or Republican, and say, okay, I work for you guys, period. What would you have me do? And then based on that majority, go back and say, okay, well, the people here in Michigan on this side of the state feel like we shouldn't do this, this, and this, so I'm voting that way. That's how government was supposed to work. I'm not saying it always works like that. I'm not even saying it works like that half of the time, but that's how it was set up to work. They're supposed to represent us and what we need, and they in turn take that representation and use it thusly. That's why right now we're not being properly represented because, yes, the vast majority of people at this point, they're still working for the most part in terms of the numbers. There's 330 million people here in America. Unemployment is at what, like 8 to 9%. So that's only like 30 to 40 million people, but still that's 30 or 40 million people. That's a lot of folks, people. And again, the pandemic is not going away. We're not turning the corner. We're turning the corner on it. No, we're not. It's getting worse and worse by the day. And it's not fake news. It's the truth. Go to your local hospital and ask them if he's lying. Go to the Secretary of State, not Secretary of State, but the health thing. Look it up for yourself. They have no dog in this fight to tell falsities about it. I mean, bottom line, the whole world, don't just look at our news, go look at BBC or some of the other outlets that you might be able to access through your cable system. See how that part of the world is dealing with it. They in the same boat we is, just we are making it worse on ourselves based on how we contend with it. So when people tell me their vote doesn't count, my question to you is, are you making it count? Are you making it matter? Do you do things to help show that, okay, I'm not taking a part of the process in that way, but I'm doing what I can in this way? Are you helping out your local communities? Are you going to the PTA meetings and the council meetings, or at least know people that are? Is your opinion being represented? Are you leading by example, perhaps, and saying, okay, well, I feel like we shouldn't have to depend on government for anything. It's all about what we do for ourselves. I'm about to show you by doing A, B, and C that this is why I don't vote. I don't need to because I'm self-sufficient and what have you. Misguided, perhaps, but I can understand the sentiment behind that. Some people I feel don't vote because it's a learned behavior. They come from families who haven't voted, who feel the same way about it. And you basically, after listening to your family over the course of your lifetime, have come to that conclusion as well. You right, Unc. You right, Grandma. You right, Meemaw. I don't see the reason why we should vote. It don't matter. You shown me over the years that that's how it is. So I'm going to go with you. As for me in my house, I do as the Williams or the Smiths or the Turners do. Turners don't vote, so I don't vote. I get that. you not want to go against your family and you feel like it's a different thing than what we see. I get it. But in the same token, with you having that understanding from how your family practices not voting, help us gain that understanding. Because, like I said, even as a voter, a person who's advocating voting, I realize that the system is not perfect, not even close, but it's the system we have right now. We got to work with what we got. It's like that old saying, when life gives you lemons, you do your best to make lemonade. It's a lemonade situation right now, folks. That's the way I see it. So until we can get to a point to where we can truly initiate change and fix some of these things, right now this is where we're at. We have to do a better job of electing people who have our best interest at heart. We have to take more of a responsibility in our voting practices. When they have the Q&A sessions, when they have the early Democratic nomination debates and whatnot, take more of an active interest in that, so that when we get to this point, we're not looking at two choices where we're like, darn if I do, darn if I don't. If we get it right on that end, that helps us on this end of it. And even still, regardless of who wins, at that point, we have to do a better job of holding these people accountable. Okay, you said you were going to do these things. Now get off your rump and do it. Because this is what we elected you for. You work for us, not for just you, not just for your family, not just for the one percenters. You work for us. Do your job. Do it correctly. Do it in the best interest of all people, not just white people, not just people of color, of all people, not just Michiganders, not just people that can attend your $1 million functions. Do it for all people. Now, if we can get everybody on that same page, you will probably get the vast majority of people that still do not vote to vote, because then they see why it works. Then they understand why the process is necessary and what benefits you can get from it at that point. Now, like I said, as far as some of the other reasons people don't vote, I can't really speak to that because I'm not a person that subscribes to that. That's why, again, I really wish someone would have come today with some understanding. Perhaps later on, as the rebroadcast of the show comes in, we'll get some comments and I'll be able to address them on a later show. But ultimately, I feel like voting is important and we need to start there in order to get to a point where we can start to get the things we really need changed, or at least on the road to that. So that is that much. So again, people, I said, if you know people who are not voting, take the time to have that conversation. Don't just belittle them and get on them like, well, why you don't vote? You stupid. No, some of these people are not stupid, not at all. They have very clear and concise reasons why they can tell you they don't vote. It may just fit just them. It may actually make so much sense. You might determine, damn, why am I voting? There's smart people out here that don't vote that think like that. But the thing is, we need to gain an understanding. A lot of these things we can fix by simply having discussions about them to determine whether or not we are all on the same page. And if we're not on the same page, why? Why do you think this way and I don't? And meet somewhere in the middle. This is how we'll get things done in the end. So that's that discussion. Like I said, I'm not getting many comments this evening. I'm assuming that either not a lot of people tuned in at this point, or basically what I'm saying makes sense to you. Whatever the case may be, please let me know in the comments, whether it be now or later on when you see the broadcast later. I appreciate it. Like I said, we want to create discussion points here. Everything's not going to be about, okay, bomb, bomb, bomb. I'm actually going to take the opposite side and look at it, because I, as a person who chooses to understand how the world works and why people think the way they think, this is my platform to try to have those conversations jump off and take place. Which leads to the next topic for discussion this evening, which is what I like to call the Nighthawk Network. Now, I've discussed this briefly in previous podcasts, both on my audio podcast, Get Off My Lawn, and I briefly teased it a couple weeks ago on this Get Off My Lawn podcast. Basically, what I'm attempting to do with my Nighthawk Network is set up people who have various degrees of opinions and views and put them all together and gain some understanding from one another so that we all can kind of look at the world through different lenses and gain different perspectives. So it helps us kind of work things out overall. In my Nighthawk Network, I basically am taking some of the podcasts that I've been listening to and I've become accustomed to and I've actually participated in and put them all in one place on my Get Off My Lawn page at the moment, but I will soon have my own separate Nighthawk Network page where I'll take some of these podcasts and some of the things they have going on, some of the people that participate in these podcasts, and put them all in one place so you can check them out and kind of follow them like I've been following them. I also want to add certain people to Nighthawk Network that are doing things that I feel like are positive and are helpful to people. One such person is a person by the name of David Ford. I know you've heard me mention it before. Is David Ford Eyewear at DFC Eyewear. David Ford Collections Eyewear.com. Check it out. I hope to have him on the show sometime in the next 2 to 4 weeks so he can discuss with you his brand and what he's doing in terms of his business. And I also like for him to discuss because he's a very positive individual. I like the fact that he often comes on during the morning and kind of gives you his perspective of what's going on in his life and how he's seeing things, you know, his kind of daily perspective, his kind of pep talks, his TED talks, if you will. I really am starting to enjoy them and like them. And I kind of want to get an understanding and give you guys an understanding of why he does that and, you know, what he's doing to be a positive influence on the members of his community as well as grow his own business. So I plan on trying to have him on the show sometime next 2 to 4 weeks. He's a busy man, so we will try to catch up with him when we can. Also, I want to catch up with some of the other people that are in my Nighthawk Network, the podcasts that I like to listen to and participate in either through the comments or sometimes I go on them. Some of them are, but not exclude, the following people. We have the Monumental Moments with Dr. Facey, Dr. Marla Facey. She is my cousin, and of course, she is also the co-host of my other podcast that we do from time to time, known as What the Bucks. Shout out to you, cousin Marla. And like I said, she also has another podcast that she's doing, or basically a show. She basically does a prayer show that talks about Bible issues on Monday. She explains that way better than I am right now. I apologize, cousin. I said, if you are listening right now, or you know, if you catch it later on, by all means, put that information in the comments so people can follow you. Or you basically can go to the Get Off My Lawn live page, and if I had that information, I will put it up on the page for you to check out. We also have Dish and Tea. Dish and Tea with my boy Big Meech, and we got the Big Red Fella Ally, and we got Auntie Nikki. Their show talks about a variety of topics just like my own, but they also do things I feel like are good for your thought process, you know, good for your inner self. They talk about stuff like our favorite movies or our favorite comfort foods or, you know, some of the things we like to do back in the day, things of that nature. It's not just all serious discussion. They talk about things from sex to politics to drugs, the whole deal. And the three of them, they have a very good interaction with one another. They've been friends for years now, and that comes off in the podcast, and it's a good discussion. And then, of course, the thing I also like about that particular show is that they have a show within the show that we all kind of started, where, you know, the people that we recognize that's on the comments on a regular basis, we say hi to each other. We kind of have a discussion during the discussion, and we join in through the comments. And sometimes they take our comments and inject it into what they're talking about. It's a great thing. So check that one out. That's Dish and Tea with Big Meech. And you can also find him on Dish and Tea Network. No, that's not right. It's Big Meech at dishandtea.com. And that leads to his whole website where he has a variety of things going on. And he also has a network in which the video podcast is broadcast on. I will let him put that in the comments. I'm sure you will catch this later on, Meech or Big Red, Nikki, any of you guys. and put on the network in which people could catch it through their streaming devices. That would be helpful. Those informations we also will put on the Get Off My Lawn information page when we catch them. Forgive me, people. We're starting to get a little tired here. Been a sleepy kind of day. Ride with me. We almost through. Anyway, another show is Lions Uncut. That is hosted by Will Muhammad and his partner, Coach V. Coach Vincent, shout out to you fellas. What's going on? What's going on, Coach V? Go Blue. Big Blue fan like myself. Basically, they talk about primarily sports-related topics, but they also get into other issues as well. I like the show they did a couple weeks ago when they talked to a couple of the people who have players in the NFL, a couple of moms. I thought that was a good show. And they talk about things related to that, but they also talk about world and hot topics and things of that nature as well. So I follow their show, and I want them to be part of my network as well. We got For Show Radio with V.L. Martin and David Bomar, a couple of brothers I went to Eastern Michigan with, but they are known as me, VL, and David as the Cardinal Dave. Highly entertaining show. That Dave, oh man. Dave, you be wildin', boy. You be wildin'. But yeah, they get into a lot of deep discussions about what's going on in the world. From their perspective, they've been doing this for years and years. When podcasts first came into existence, they were one of the first people of color to have their own podcast and on a regular basis. And they talk sports and they kind of evolved into other things. So, I like having that discussion. They go on pretty much every week or so, particularly on the weekend, Friday or Saturday. So you can catch them on my Get Off My Lawn info page. When they come up, I'll put it up on there. I've jumped on there on the phone with them a couple of times to discuss my end of how I feel about it and whatnot. They're pretty good about taking calls and whatnot. I'll get to that point. Y'all know I'm struggling with the technology now. I want to make things overcomplicated. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. And then, of course, there's Girl Stop. Elena Miller, one of my cousins, she has a new podcast that she started a few weeks ago. She had one previously to it, but now this one's called Girl Stop. And they're basically her and her homegirl Letitia. They have a conversational talk about what's going on from the female perspective, and they're into women empowerment and things of that nature. I like it. They people of a particular age, much like myself, much like many of the other people in the network. So they have a perspective. All righty then. And let's see, my cousin's checking in. She's got a watch party going on. Thanks, cuz. I appreciate it. I do. So I got about 10 people on. Shout out to everybody. Like I said, if you're not chiming in the comments, I do appreciate you coming in. I understand this is still showing its inkling development. I'm not planning on blowing up like Nitro, but who knows? You never know. People might see this face and hear what I'm saying and really get to digging it. And I get hundreds of thousands of it. Who knows? That's how all these pod shows started for the most part. It's a few people and it goes from there. But my whole thing is I just want to create conversation points. I want to put out awareness. I want to use this platform that I've been given to have people at least think about some of the things that perhaps they wouldn't normally think about otherwise. That's why it's important. Cuz also wants to shout out our fam in Sedalia. What's going on, folks? The Buckner and the Kleins and Facey's and Millers and Johnsons. We got all type of connections in there. So shout out to all you guys. What's going on, family? Appreciate you. Like I said, these are some of the people that's presently in the network, and I want to offer you the opportunity to be part of the network as well. If you have a business that you want to promote, if you have a podcast that you're starting, if you want to start a podcast, I can help you, or some of these people that I've just mentioned, they can help you too. They've helped me along the way, and you have some unique perspective, or find yourself to be entertaining, or have, have a perspective that you feel people need to hear. By all means, if you want to get that out there and you're not quite sure how to get it started or cracking, get in contact with one of us and let's see what we can do. And of course, there's still people that I'm asking if you want to be on the show and discuss, be a guest host or something to that effect, by all means, Let's see what we can do to make that happen. I'm good with it because different perspectives are something that we want to have. We want to see if you see it the same as I see it, or if you see it differently than I see it. These opinions is what make these conversations go. So by all means, get in touch with me through the Get Off My Lawn info page or on my personal page through my messenger. Also, I am Eric Buckner or Eric Hawk 45 on Instagram. You can find me there. And let's see what we can do to hook up and make some things happen. So before I call it a night, I want to get into a few things. One, there's still a lot of other things going on here on the planet and here in the United States that not getting the type of news that some of this other stuff is. There's a lot of bad violence going on still. Concerned about that. There's still all the fires going on in California and now in Oregon and Colorado. Praying for those people, praying that that goes away quicker than later. Of course, there's another hurricane they say on the way, headed toward Louisiana again. They've already been through so much this year. At least 5 different hurricanes have hit Louisiana at this point. So imagine if you live in that area and you just now starting to get stuff cleaned back up, and here we go again. I don't see how y'all do it, man. I couldn't do it. That's just too much. So I definitely have you guys in my prayers. There's been an increase in a lot of things. There's an increase in domestic violence, as we mentioned last week. There's been an increase in overall crime. There's an increase in sex trafficking, kids being kidnapped, all these types of things, and they're not getting the type of news coverage that some of the other stuff is getting right now because there's so much of that going on. But yeah, there's people that's experiencing that and dealing with that. My prayers are out to you. And of course, there's still all the people that have died from COVID, people that are now sick from COVID. You guys are definitely in my prayers. I don't want you guys to be forgotten in this. I want it to be just a point where y'all just become statistics and numbers, and people forget that people are actually losing their lives out here to this stuff. And we need to do our best to try to contain it if we can by any means necessary. So if they say this helps, come on, y'all. Let's do it. They say we don't always need to be hanging out and stuff right now until we can get it situated. It's just a few months, maybe another year. It's not the end of the world. Remember, life is a marathon, not a sprint. So if we have to be chill for a minute, let's just be chill. Do what we got to do, okay? So at that point and that rate, we about to call it an evening. As for myself, I'm about to check out This Is Us season premieres tonight. One of my favorite shows. Love it. The things that they cover, the just the overall show itself, I'm a big fan of. And of course, the World Series continuing tonight. I think this is it. I think the Dodgers finish it out tonight. They finally win after 32 long years. Good for them if they do so. Definitely cheering for them because, of course, one of the owners, Magic Johnson, is a Michigan person. Not Michigan, but Michigan person. So I definitely want to see some good things happen for him in regards to that. So at any rate, guys, this is Get Off My Lawn Live. I've been your host, Eric Buckner. We got to call it an evening. I thank you all for listening. And like I said, whether you catch it live or if you catch it in the rebroadcast, if you have some comments about what I've said, by all means, go ahead and comment as you rehear the broadcast, and I get back in touch with you about it. You know, I'll go back through the comments and see what was said, and I'll address those comments. And like I said, if it's some of interest that you bring up along the way, and I put it in a future broadcast, why not? Like I said, that's what the show is for, to have these conversations. So until next time, okay, one last thing to note before we go. Let me put back on the thing here. And I want to send a shout out again to my cousin. She is doing a sock drive. The sock drive is for people who are unfortunate, the people who are unable to afford socks during this pandemic season, particularly as we get closer to winter and it's getting colder. The socks are pretty much going to her area in Maryland, but we want to get it set up to where we can start doing sock drives in different areas, like one where our family is in Sedalia, or here in Detroit or what have you, this is the information here, Sock Drive at Marla Facey. This is her Zelle account. And of course, I will have her show on the Nighthawk Network / Get Off My Lawn Live info page, and she'll talk about it as well, give you additional information on how you can contribute. But any amount will do, $1, $5, whatever. I know it's hard times out here right now in the middle of the pandemic, and some of us is pinching the pennies as tight as we can. But if you got $1 or $2 you can give to the cause, you can send that to her. She is very transparent through the whole process. She shows you when she purchases stocks. She'll show you the purchase receipt for the stock. She shows you when the stocks come. She'll show you her taking the stocks to where they go. And most places, when you donate and whatnot, they don't give you all that transparency. So that's why I like why she's doing it the way she's doing it. So keep up the good work, cuz we will help out where we can. Like I said, this is the information. If you can give $1 or $2, by all means, please do so. So again, this is the show. Time to end another episode here. Get Off My Lawn Live. I've been your host, Eric B. And until next time, folks, please be safe. Be careful out here. Make sure you do your research. Don't just take everything at face value. Like I said, I say what I say. I base it on whatever I found on the internet or what I've learned. But I'm not always right. If you find different information that contradicts what I say, by all means, let me know. Let's have that discussion. Let's hash it out. Let's figure these things out. That's what we're here for. We're working together. We're working with each other here, okay? So until next time, y'all be safe, and I will see you sometime soon. My birthday is Monday. It's going to be a special show Monday. Special episode of Get Off My Lawn Live. We're going to go through my 50-year perspective. I'll be 50, y'all. The big 50. So we'll talk about that. So until then, have a good one. See ya. Peace. Get off my lawn.